Hello, all. Would you like a story?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We're going to read a story from St. Mud. It was actually a good book. And I swear to God, it's in this book. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a young boy named Cappy. Cappy was a really nice, sweet guy, and that's what was wrong with him. One day, his friend, Melinda, came up to him and says, "Hey, Aaron, you're such a sweet, nice guy. Let me set you up with my friend, Bonnie." And old Cappy, young Cappy, said, "That'd be great. Bonnie is really hot, and I would totally nail her." Melinda said, "Yes, Bonnie is sick and tired of dating all these assholes and jerks, like members of the Minnesota Vikings and Minnesota Timberwolves." Cappy said, "Well, hey, why would she want to date me?" Remember your teacher would do that? Put saliva and spit. Pages be wrinkled in all the libraries, book from teacher spit. Where was I? Where was I? Anyway, so Melinda set up Cappy with her friend Bonnie. Cappy picked up Bonnie one time at her parents' house. Her parents lived in a private gated community, and because Cappy drove this piece of shit 1978 Gutless Cutlass Supreme, the parents, made him park the car down the street so as not to embarrass them. They also didn't like him because he was white and they happened to be Asian, and Taiwanese specifically, and cumulatively had a net worth of over $1 billion between the cunt of a wife and the guy who had his balls cut off by the cunt of his wife, the husband. Things went well for the first month. Actually, the first week, really. It only went well for a week. Until he found out that Bonnie was batshit insane. She threatened suicide, whined and complained when he didn't offer to buy her a soda at the gas station while getting gas, and in general was the most psychotic bitch he ever dated. The romance quickly ended, even though all of his friends were jealous that he was punching above his waist, at least in the looks department. However, Cappy remembers one time when Bonnie went away on some kind of trip. She expected him, Cappy, to change the oil on her brand new Altima that Daddy purchased her. Daddy purchased her a lot of things, like fucking everything, and this was the third brand new car that he had bought his precious little suburbanite princess. Cappy took the car and changed the oil on the Altima, doing the math very quickly, realizing that this ball-cut-off pussy of a father out in the gated community suburbs had spent more on his princess in cars alone than he had expended his entire 4 years in college, including tuition. The end. Now, obviously, it's not in that book. Good book, by the way, St. Mud, great book. You and your saints and your saint ways. It's a good book. You would like. Anyway. That is obviously not a story. It's a true story. And I may have changed the names. Oh, I forgot. I forgot. Let's go to the end of the book where it's really... 5 years later, Cappy met Bonnie, but he didn't know it was Bonnie because Bonnie had found herself an engineer for a boyfriend, soon-to-be husband, and she gained about 80 pounds. So fat was she when she introduced herself as Bonnie. He says, "Hi, nice to meet you," and then Bonnie said, "Cappy, we know each other." Cappy, truly not recognize her because she got so fat, didn't really let that click with his mind and continued on until 2 weeks later when he talked to Melinda and found out that that was indeed Bonnie, the former hot chick, now the fat Asian sow. There, okay, that was the happy ending to the story. This was a lead up to something. I did a podcast a while ago, and I know not everybody from the YouTube goes to the podcast to the YouTube. There's all this different sources of social media. But there's something very important. I did a segment in my podcast. I'm going to take that segment, that excerpt out and put together. And that is the suburbanite princess syndrome. Right? Men, and we could say this isn't necessarily men, because you have seen generations spoil their children when they have riches and success. They will spoil their children. And think they're doing their children a favor when in reality, all they do is manage to spoil, rotten their children. And Bonnie that I dated was one such person. She was batshit insane. She wasn't normal. I mean, she was psychotic. She could not function in the real world, and she could not support herself as an adult. All because her father was this spineless guy, and nothing was too good for his little suburbanite princess. So I'm calling it the suburbanite princess syndrome. There's a problem. It could go, well, think about this. What if you never train your children to become, self-reliant adults? Forget the financial consequences. What if they're just naive and they can't identify threats? They become easy marks to the predators of society. And this segment that I'm about to have you listen to exemplifies such an instance. And it's an extreme existence, but I want to start bringing up the consequences and the ramifications to all you dads out there that brought your daughters up to think that they were too good for everything, made our dating lives hell.
You know what? Hang on.
Which I know you really don't care about because you don't know us personally, but there is a price to pay in the end. So hopefully you listen to us.
Be so arrogant or cocky, but it's not because I'm right. I don't have any great foresight ability. I don't have a magic crystal ball. All I got is cynicism, a really tough fucking life, and some mathematics and economics to observe society with. And if some parents want to prevent their little precious daughter having the same fate as this, or ending up being desperate and having to strip for money, or having to go to grad school, and then you sign off on her law degree, student loans, and then you torpedo the entire family's fucking finances, could you perhaps subscribe to my, I would like to call it law, because it's never been proven wrong yet, but let's just call it a theory, that when your ego gets in the way, that you pay and shell out tons of money. Matter of fact, you live your life for your ego, but you're too damn lazy to actually live up to your ego's expectations or demands for your life. That there are problems. And that is the number one, biggest, largest, most damning, risky threat facing young people and their families stupid enough to co-sign on the dotted line. And that would be what? Co-signing on the dotted line for worthless degrees and student loans. The problems were there. If you subscribe to my philosophy, my theory, my hypothesis, or I just like to say, you get your head out of your fucking ass, and you look at these people, you look at this particular instance, there were trouble signs all there a decade before it happened. I want to go into and dance, and I want to go pet puppies and flowers. I want, and I'm going to get a degree, and now I'm going to go to Naropa. There were red flags the entire time. That if parents today had a fucking spine and didn't fucking pamper their goddamn children, they could prevent their children from making egregious mistakes. Now this, I admit, this is not common, what happened to poor Sharon. This is way out there. Okay? But what is much more common, and I think just as equally disdained, like daddy doesn't want his little daughter to do this, are these women and boys, children, it's not just women, but in particular women that have to resort to stripping, prostitution, working shitty jobs, men working part-time, poverty, strife, living in frozen basements. Okay? If you really care, if you really want to be good parents, you'll do the hard parenting too. Not just, well, nothing's too good for my little Sharon. Little Sharoni, what do you, here's some money for college. Here's some money for living. You just do what you dance, sweetheart, you dance. If you spoil a person rotten, they never define themselves. They never find their true self. They never define their personality. They're common. They're so fucking common. Spoiled little American women, little girls who have their worthless degrees and think they're intelligent and they're not, and they all vote for the Democrat. How many can you mass produce? You can exchange them just like you can an oil filter on my motorcycle. They're cookie cutter boring. And then when they all realize they're cookie cutter boring, they're going to go out into the world and try to define themselves. And they're going to define themselves not by rigor, challenge, adventure. They're going to find the easiest way, and since you've never held them up to any kind of real standard, you've never told them the harsh realities of the real world, they're going to find con artists. And grad school is just the latest version of indoctrination. Now, this is probably the worst one she could have picked. But it just keeps going and going and going until you tell someone, sorry, any kind of life fulfillment comes from an element of challenge. I'm not saying pain. Pain will certainly deliver it. But some kind of rigor where you have to work hard, where you have to do something you don't like, working towards a larger and, above all else, practical goal, not going and getting a fucking master's in fine arts in creative writing or dance. But if you want, see, because let's do some math. Let's think this one through. You're 50 when your little kids go to college. They go to college for 5 years because we never hold them up to any real standards to get their undergrad. Then they go maybe wander in the desert for a year or two. That's 7 years. Then they go to grad school, another 3. So now you're 60. They go wander around in the desert for 10 years trying to figure out what to do so that by the time they are 40, you're almost dead. You're in your 70s, so you're going to die. Now, they still got to live on this planet for another 30 to 40 years. And because you've lied to them and pampered them the entire time, not only was their first half of life a lie and somewhat difficult and somewhat misleading, and not that you misled them, which you did, but like they had no direction, they had no point and purpose in life, they had no meaning in life. What do you think the next 40 years of their lives is going to be? Oh, congratulations, great parenting, great, wonderful parenting. You've got to check your love and make sure it doesn't blind you to spoil your children rotten. Because whatever pain you think you're saving them from not having to work at McDonald's as a teenager, not having to strife a little bit in college, not having to go and pay their own rent, find things like, how to sign a lease, all this other stuff. The pain you think you're saving them, you're merely preventing them from learning how to live life, how to live in the real world. And there's no shortage of charlatans and thieves and con artists, especially in the education industry, that have no problem, hey, taking your parents or your sons and daughters for their money, or in this case, raping them and using them as sex toys. I don't know, whatever. I'm sure your daughter is doing just fine in law school, and that part-time job she has on Friday and Saturday nights where she surprisingly has a lot of money, I'm sure that has nothing to do with stripping or prostitution.